Having gone through the virtualization journey, what's one thing that maybe you would do differently?
There are many things that I would probably do differently.
Agility is very important for us as a bank.
Obviously thousands and thousands of VMs, you will not have manpower to do it yourself.
We're doing a lot with Red Hat on OpenShift AI. So how do we manage our GPU workloads? How do we run that? And how do we reach more and more AI use cases?
Well, we finally talked about AI. We've gone through technology conversation for 30 minutes and we finally got to AI.
Ford makes autonomous driven cars. There's no reason why we cannot run our infrastructure autonomous as well.
You get 6 months, 9,000 VMs and happy developers, right?
Yep.
Who doesn't want that? Right?
Go for it, partner with Red Hat and really go for it.
Collectively, we've spent a lot of time together talking about both sort of your steps that you've taken to embark on virtualization and the challenges that you faced, that you overcome, and presumably the benefits that you got. Just talk a little bit about the environment that you were facing, the application environment that you were in when you started to embark on the journey, and how did you think about this process?
Sure. First of all, thanks a lot for having me here, Ashesh. As you know, Ford is a very iconic and historical brand, right? We've been around for over 122 years now in the industry. We have lots and lots of applications which are written in a very ancient time. It poses a challenge because these applications are not only old, but they also, some of them run on physical machines, some of them run on virtual machines. These applications manage our core infrastructure. Some of them manage our manufacturing plants, which means any impact to this application directly results into loss of the vehicles being manufactured. A couple of years back, we embarked upon this journey to do app modernization. And that is where we tied up with Red Hat to sort of look at how do we move these applications from the old ancient technology and more containerize it, right? And put them on the containers. Obviously, the use of cloud became very, very predominant in this process. The applications that can be modernized and really can't go on the cloud are the one, because of the edge requirements or the compliance regulatory requirements, are the one that we modernize them on-prem on the container. So that journey is on. And also while doing that journey, we realized that there are many applications which for whatever reason cannot be containerized. That is when we started looking at what are the other virtual machines platform that we can use as a launchpad.
And so, Ali, I see you nodding along to what Sandeep was saying. And of course, financial services is very different from automotive. Any similar challenges, or did you have a different perspective?
No, absolutely. I think from what Sandeep was saying, at Emirates NBD, we're the largest bank in Dubai and one of the largest in the Middle East. And we had a similar challenge. We engaged on an app modernization over the last 3 or 4 years, and we've containerized many of our applications. But like Sandeep, there's some that we couldn't containerize, so we had to keep them within virtual machines. And they're the ones that we looked and said, all right, we've had a great experience with OpenShift, good relationship with Red Hat, things are going really well, great stability, great reliability. And as a bank, we have to operate 24/7, similar to Sandeep with a factory in Ford. So we wanted something that was reliable. We had a great relationship with the vendor. So we looked at KubeVirt and how we could move those virtual machines that were running, and we couldn't modernize them, or they're more, a product or a vendor product that was, something that we really didn't have much influence on. And we will containerize them over time, but we moved those over to KubeVirt, and now it's going very well. I'm very happy with it.
So I know we've talked about application modernization here, but from your perspective, Ali, was it application modernization, agility? Was it maybe cost, combination of two, or some other factors that led you to go down this path?
I think for us, first and foremost, was the relationship with Red Hat. We'd been on the journey for a while with OpenShift and containers. Where there was any issues or problems, we could get directly to the engineering team, get it solved quickly. And as a bank, we have to operate 24/7. We really have to be up and running. I think second was the agility. We're getting more and more regulation where we have to localize in countries that we operate. So we want that agility to be able to move quickly and really have our applications running locally in each of these countries that we operate. So I think that agility is very important for us as a bank that's looking to expand and grow in many countries. And finally is the cost. I think the cost is an important factor. Running containers and virtual machines on the same platform and getting the benefits of the cost is really important for us.
For us, it was more about how do we improve business value by building low-cost applications which are secure, scalable, available, and then tie observability and AI on top of it to kind of empower every business decisions through AI.
When you and team identified the problem and decided to embark on the journey, how did you start that process? What was the aha moment that you all faced?
Yeah, I think for us, we've always had these two virtualization platforms, one for containers and one for virtual machines. And we always believed in Kubernetes and wanted to bring it together and very much use OpenShift. And we'd been watching KubeVirt develop over time from 0.7, 0.8 to the actual version 1 release. And then when it was finally ready, that was that aha moment, it's ready, we can now use it. That's when we started moving on the journey, started moving virtual machines across with our dev and test machines to some of our staging machines and finally our production machines. And yeah, it was really that, that stabilization, that single platform, that partnership with Red Hat, that, that focus to make sure we could really simplify our operating system, our environment, and a single pane of glass that really simplified, way of managing our platform and all of our compute and applications in one place.
Sandeep, similarly for you, did you have some key criteria that you underwent?
Definitely, yes. I think the key criteria for us was, interoperability for sure. We already had pre-existing tools that we're working on our current virtualization platform. We want to make sure that we can use the same ones with Red Hat as well. Giving that open standard is really useful for us in that Red Hat provides. And as Ali mentioned, we were looking for a platform where we can use and host our virtual machines as a launchpad, right? And migrate them into the Kubernetes as soon as the applications are ready. But when we do, I don't want to really worry about underlying infrastructure and the process, right? Since it went on the same piece of hardware where Kubernetes were there, they were all neighbors with each other, it became very easy for us.
Now let's talk about the actual migration. Obviously, scale was a challenge for both of you, trying to migrate thousands of workloads over. Sandeep, what challenges did you and team face when you were actually going through this process?
We had thousands and thousands of VMs to migrate, right? And our initial process was the migration is nothing about, I'm copying a VM from one hypervisor to other hypervisor, right? It can't be that simple when you actually dive into it, right? We realized that the applications play a very important role in the entire migrations, right? The reason being, many of these applications use underlying hypervisor technologies a lot. And then how do you replicate that into the new hypervisor, right? For example, we wanted to use pod networking that OSV offers. So we realized that this is not about just VM migration. In certain cases, we actually had to re-architect the applications for high availability. For example, some of the applications we rebuilt from the scratch to give them a load balancer view, right? How do we migrate, the applications which are highly available as against, not highly available, right? So obviously, getting a downtime from business becomes a big challenge. So, how do you make work, without really impacting business? The entire migration technology was one of the biggest challenge that we had. Other than that, I think I will talk about people challenges, right? So traditionally, people are very married to a technology, right? So when you change technology, it becomes a problem, right? So you have to actually grow the team in two ways, right? One is organically, you can do the training, certifications, other stuff, but you do have to get some industry experts as well, just so that you can get a head start, right? So these two, to me, were the major kind of challenges that we dealt with. We re-architect some of the applications to migrate that, and then building the people technology.
Got it. So great insights, Sandeep, right? You talked about both aspects. One is when you do a migration, take advantage of the fact that the new platform can offer you different or new capabilities. And then related to that is associated behavior change, people change, cultural change, organizational change, maybe all aspects of that. I'll turn that over to you, Ali, right? Were there any that you shared that's similar to what Sandeep had? Were there some unexpected moment or moments for you?
Look, I think it's a journey. I think very much like Sandeep, we had to migrate live, and it's a learning experience. It's very different when you're dealing with containers. We have, scratch containers with no operating system, so you're really limited by your CPU and your memory. When you start dealing with virtual machines, you've got a lot to do with the storage. So you're moving a lot of storage, and that takes a lot of time. So we started with maybe 10 VMs per night, then we went to 50. Got up to about 200-300 per night, and that's very much in working in collaboration with Red Hat and with our storage vendor to make sure we could really push it as hard as we needed to move those virtual machines across. I think the other one in relation to Sandeep's point, which was an interesting one, which is how do you make it as easy as possible for the application team? So we created a two-step process. One step was really to sync the virtual machines in the background, so the storage was synced, and the second step was bring down the old virtual machine and bring it up in KubeVirt. So we really wanted to make it self-service, so really make it as simple as possible for the application teams to move their virtual machines across and with no downtime. So that's how we focused on it. But very much like Sandeep, one is about the mentality of the teams that you're dealing with and making it simple for them. The other one is really being able to push your storage. When you're dealing with virtual machines, it's very much around the storage and how fast you can make it go.
Sandeep, you talked about networking, you've talked about storage. Were there any other technologies that were either unexpected, either on the, wow, did not realize that this would be a challenge, or it would be great for others to know about some other maybe ISV applications or anything else.
So we had some challenges with Windows operating systems. RHEL was great, no issues with RHEL, but we had some Windows operating system challenges where they may not come up or they might get corrupted, and we fixed those over time. And some applications, weren't certified on KubeVirt, and we worked very closely with the applications and with Red Hat, and we really got them certified over time.
Operating system definitely happens to be a challenge for us. But other than that, the COTS applications, which are not certified by Red Hat, and third part is the appliances. We have many applications that use appliances as well. So we literally had to actually categorize our problems into two or three buckets, right? One is easy to migrate. Second one is you have to re-architect, and the third one is this bucket, right, where you got COTS, appliances, kind of a problem. But these three were the one. I'll also add to what Ali said. I think automation plays a very important role in this entire process, right? Obviously thousands and thousands of VMs, you will not have manpower to do it yourself. So how do you empower your end users to actually do it themselves? So we also built a two-step process. Our two-step process was, one was an application being requested to be migrated, and the second one was actual migration getting kicked off, because we didn't want end users themselves to kick on the migrations, right? Since we control the outage windows and other stuff, that's a two-step process we built, and we really got accelerations, migrations when we empowered our end users to do it than us driving it ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's important. It really makes them feel like they're part of the journey. They get that self-service capability,
Sure,
and they can drive their own destiny to where they need
correct,
to.
absolutely. And they take care of the most of the problem of communicating the business, changing, testing. Everything now becomes their kind of stuff to own.
Was skill or retraining an issue for either one of you, or did you, because both your teams had familiarity with OpenShift, but obviously this is a different aspect. Did that come up?
I think Sandeep mentioned earlier, we were able to use a lot of the same tools, whether it was the Vault for secrets or Jenkins for pipelines. We were able to leverage a lot of the common tools between both platforms. So that helped us a lot. I think the other one is we got a lot of benefits where we had separate teams running different virtualization platforms. So when you bring them together, you almost overnight, Ashesh, you get double the capacity, which is great because you can throw them at one platform and you can focus on more automation and doing a lot more with having more people on one platform rather than segregated platforms. So that helped us from our side.
Initially it was, but I think as Ali said, in the long term, it really, people realize the real value of doing this together, right? And other than having 10 different technologies, now we are kind of converging into one. That really helped us a lot, right? Looking at the same technology being used for containers as well as for virtual machines, became very easy for people. One, it offered them a career path as well. B, it's a new technology learning, right? So we did the mix and match of doing the organic growth, conducting certifications, trainings, other stuff, but also hiring some fresh talent from the market as well. That's how we built it.
The virtual machine team got to play with containers.
Yeah, exactly. And
the virtual machine, yeah. So they actually got something new under their belt. They were quite interested in it. So you saw that whole proactiveness and learning coming into it as well.
But that's heartwarming to us, right? On the product side, developing this technology, to be able to say, you are able to have one platform that will converge, VMs and containers. But then the fact that you can now take advantage of one team across both of those, right, is obviously, huge from our perspective in that we're delivering a platform that is providing this level of productivity for both of you.
Yeah, and I think we didn't mention the infrastructure utilization now. We can run virtual machines, containers. We almost get a lot more infrastructure utilization and efficiency out of it.
Right.
So that's really important for us when we're focused as a bank. We're very much focused on ESG and trying to reduce our carbon footprint. We now have that infrastructure a lot more used. We can run virtual machines, any spare capacity, we can run containers. So now we just share that infrastructure across the board to run virtual machines and containers, whereas before they were separate clusters. Now we can just bring them all together and use that across the board, which works out really well for us.
So let's talk about business results, right? Because obviously you're making all these changes, you're expecting, value to come directly to your bottom line around it. How did you measure whether you and your team were being successful?
Well, I think there's numerous. I think the main one would be cost. We mentioned it earlier, which is that cost of a single platform. But the other ones is that speed to market, the agility, and I think probably most important, the reliability. Being able to run everything on one platform, which has got that resilience in place, and being able to serve our customers 24/7.
You've talked about cost,
Agility.
You talked about agility, availability, right? All of these have been important, and obviously you found ways to make sure you're measuring them. Sandeep, how about you? Did you have similar? How did you go through this?
Almost similar. I will just kind of elaborate further on cost. I think it's not just the cost of platform, right? It's the cost of managing the platform. It's cost of the people. All those whole 9 yards that comes along with it. That's definitely was one part. Other part I talked about was the developer experience, right? Where how do I codify everything, right? How do I empower my developer to provision, the not just the production applications, but the QA test as well, right? And how do I not run those at all the time, right? How do I provision them only when the time for development cycle comes up, and then just remove them when they're not required? And third was, again, I said, how do I empower my business to take decisions, important decisions based on the underlying applications, which underline, lies in the infrastructure.
But measurement, right? So was that a challenge? Did you have standard ways of measuring the productivity gains or efficiencies that you were getting? Did you have to sort of think about this differently?
Yeah, look, I think for us, when we started migrating in full earnest, I think it was 6 months, 9,000 virtual machines completely moved across. So I think for me, the headline was that we were able to move the footprint over 6 months. When we really got going with Red Hat's help and with some of the other vendors' help, it was really quite quick that we were able to move across. I think Sandeep mentioned a good point, which is really around dev space and the developer experience. We're able to spin up, developer environments, let them play, then shut them down. That was an added benefit that we got, and the developers really loved that, especially with the advent of a lot more AI tools and a lot more, innovation that they're looking at. It meets the security requirements, it makes the developers quite happy, and we're able to do that with OpenShift dev spaces quite well.
So great headline from you, right? You have 6 months, 9,000 VMs and happy developers, right?
Yep.
Who doesn't want that?
Exactly.
Did you have a similar headline?
I think for me, the biggest headline would be, if you look at from Ford perspective, the people who were the most nervous about this were the manufacturing folks, right? Because, as I said, that becomes very critical for us. So for me, the headline would be, we just finished about 8 or 10 manufacturing plants, and they didn't even know they'd moved, right? It was completely transparent from them. The application performed, exactly at the same level, if not better than they were before, and completely seamless migrations.
Well, now that you've unified this environment, Ali, let's look ahead, right? You've got containers, VMs running in the same platform. How does this impact your strategy for the next 3 to 5 years? Are there new initiatives, new projects, things maybe you couldn't do before, or just areas that you're interested in pursuing?
Yes, it's a great question, Ashesh. We talk a lot about the cookie cutter approach. How do we, now that we've got a standard platform, how do we now take this and deploy this in the other entities or the other countries that we operate in? And now we've got all on one platform. It makes that simpler. We can now take that tool set and really push it out to whichever country or entity that we want to. So we've got a big focus on public cloud. We really want to be able to take OpenShift, not only containers, but KubeVirt, and run it on the different public clouds that are available in these different countries. And that's going to be important for us. Some countries we may not have a dedicated data center, so we may want to use public cloud. So really that's going to be important as part of our strategy over the next 3 to 5 years. The other one is we're doing a lot with Red Hat on OpenShift AI. So how do we manage our GPU workloads? How do we run that? And how do we engage and leverage more and more AI use cases? It's becoming more prevalent. We're getting a lot of benefit out of it. So we're very much happy to partner with Red Hat and look at how we can use that for our GPUs on-premise and in the cloud as well.
Well, we finally talked about AI. We've gone through a technology conversation for 30 minutes, and we finally got to AI. That's good to know. So that makes sense. And then also, I love this idea of being able to run OpenShift Virt in different public clouds, taking advantage of Virt as well. Sandeep, over to you, your perspectives.
So I often challenge my teams that Ford makes autonomous-driven cars, right? There's no reason why we cannot run our infrastructure autonomous as well, right? On one side, we manufacture cars that run autonomously where people's lives are at stake. There is no reason why we cannot build the same story in the infrastructure automation space as well, right? And that is where this really adds a value to us. Having a unified platform helps us, as Ali talked about, run more and more AI initiatives where I will know and the issues are healed by themselves before even they come up. We are also looking at building something called as plant in a box, right? Where today, if I were to do a tech refresh, it's a very long-driven activity, right? Where each and every box is shipped to the plant, built together, things like that. Now we're going towards how do I build the entire rack off-site and just ship it there and just power it up and the plant comes up from there, right? Those are the kind of directions that we want to go in the future.
So I love that, right? Great vision, great ambition, right? You talk about autonomous driving. You've talked about a plant in a box or just more automation in place. Ali, you've talked about AI. You've talked about taking advantage of virtualization across public clouds. And that's all looking forward, right? And I wish you both well, and we look forward to supporting you as you go through these journeys. But having gone through the virtualization journey for the container platform, and then knowing what you know now, let's look back as well. What's one thing, and we'll start with you, Sandeep, that maybe you would do differently?
There are many things that I would probably do differently, but I think I'll start with first of all building your modernization strategy. That's very, very important, right? What we realized was there is always a mismatch of the plan versus the actual execution. We when we went back to applications teams, we got feedback that almost 70% of applications would get modernized. And when we actually started in the execution phase, we realized that, hey, many of them were not ready for modernization, right? So we had to work quickly on plan B to kind of bring them back up to the speed and still migrate them, but not modernize them. That to me was number one. When you embark upon this journey, it is not about technology transformation only, right? Always look at the business transformation. Often when you start doing a technical transformation, those projects go on and on for a very long time. Whereas if you break them down into a business transformation, I think it shows your value much actively as you're going through these projects.
Yeah, good insights, right? So one is unexpected things that can come about in planning, being flexible to deal with them. And then of course this notion of not technology transformation for the sake of new technology, but do that with regard to business. How about you, Ali?
I completely agree with Sandeep. I think it's important to really think about, as you're doing this transformation, are you able to containerize any of these virtual machines? Because that's going to give you the most benefit in moving across from a virtual machine to a container. But I think for me, the biggest one is really, we already had a great relationship with our partners, but think about, how do you engage them early? Whether it's on the storage side, so we're really going to be pushing your storage platform. We really need you partnered with us and really making sure it works well. Or looking at your other partners around, we're moving from, an existing virtualization platform onto KubeVirt. And, are you certified? What can we do with you? How can we work with you to make sure this is certified? So when we do move it across to OpenShift KubeVirt, it will work, it'll be supported, and it will run as we need to. And I think that's important, really, that early planning and really engagement with the partners. And I don't call them vendors, I call them partners, because we really have a good relationship with all of them. But how do you plan with them early so you don't get to the end and then you're sort of stuck? You want to make sure you're planning that early so that it's seamless all the way through.
Yeah, it's great insight, Ali. And I'll say this for both of you. You've been great partners for us. We've learned a lot along the way. We've learned to partner even deeper with a lot of these other technology providers, right? Whether it's been in storage, whether it's in HADR, but you've both been great visionary leaders, through this journey. So now is the time for you to now share some advice, right? So for someone who's, let's say, sitting in your shoes, what would you tell them?
For me, don't think twice. Just jump straight into it. We spent a lot of time researching, testing, preparing, and it's only once we really went full earnest and said, let's go, then within 6 months we were done. So my view would be, make the jump,
right.
Go for it, partner with Red Hat, get in contact, and really go for it. And you'll find it's a lot simpler, it's a lot easier than people think, and there's a lot of benefits to be gained out of it.
Great advice, right? Make a decision, go forward to it, and let's be honest, right? There's a lot of groundbreaking work that you, Ali, and Sandeep, you all have already done, right? You already paved the path for them, so Absolutely. It makes it much easier now for them.
I will just enhance to what Ali said, right? I will just say that always follow the crawl, walk, and run strategy, right? Break down your major transformation into a measurable, smaller chunk, and keep business always your partners, right? Demonstrate the value that you're adding as you're doing this transformation, because some of this transformation, you like it or not, will go for years, if not months, right? So it's very important for you to show your value as you're in the journey to the business as well.
I want to thank our guests, both Sandeep from Ford and Ali from Emirates NBD, for joining us today for a very insightful conversation about virtualization, sharing their perspective on challenges and how they overcame them, lessons they learned along the way, as well as some great advice that you shared with those who will be in their shoes going forward. So thank you again for joining us today and talking about your journey.